All right, it's been like a week or so. I'm ready to do my Harris Chain wrap up. Um, as you know, I didn't film very much there. I was trying to like really concentrate and trying to make some stuff happen. Turns out it'd be the worst tournament so far of the season. Here's what happened. So I had a pretty good game plan going into practice. I didn't really find anything special like a lot of these guys, but I had a decent plan, and there was a lot of people running around. There's a lot of pressure on the main bodies of water, so I was going to make this run. Of course, it was during Memorial Day. The practice was. So my plan was to run all the way to Dora, and I had literally two banks. One where there's just a bunch of memorial partiers. I was like, that looks like the bank that I found fish on. I found like a school of fish on there on this one bank that was right across from them on a point. And I would get bit on every cast. In fact, the last day of practice, I went over to double check to make sure that school was there. I could see him on live scope. I caught a keeper. I went there 3 casts in a row, had fish. I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm leaving this. I'll come here. This is my game plan. I had a backup plan in the main Harris, but I don't like fishing around a whole lot of people. So I didn't want to do that. So day one, I had the best boat draw I've ever had, 13th. Of course, I'm not the fastest boat either. But I thought, well, if anything, I'll get there. So I run all the way there, right? It's like, what could possibly be? There's only 12 other boats ahead of me, and chances are they're going to like Griffin or staying in Harris, or there's some offshore stuff in Eustis. And I get all the way over there, and there's a guy sitting there, right on this spot, right? And then there's another local that pulls up right there, and I'm pretty sure the guy that was on there was a competitor. I'm not for certain if he's a local. I know the one guys are local because they weren't in like a bass boat. It was more like a DV type boat. So then I go across the other bank where there was the Memorial guys were. Fished that around. I didn't see any activity there. I didn't catch anything, but I watched those guys that catch something. I watched another local boat go over there. I stayed there for an hour, just like, okay, maybe they'll just work through this. Maybe they don't really know that there's a group of fish there, but more than likely they do. But maybe they'll just work through there. I'll be able to go through and do my thing. So I fish around a little bit for an hour. Don't get anything. Go back on I was like, all right, I got to pull the plug. We got to do something. So I run back kind of over there, and there's the guy. There's another 2 guys waiting to get on that spot. I mean, they're locals. They're just around, and that's just not me. I'm not going to fish within like 25 yards of people. So I give them, wave is, give them a little wave, and I head down to Harris. And granted, things in Harris, I went to my other spot, and there's people all over it, because it turns out that's kind of a community hole where these shell beds are. So I go in there, and so I burnt 3 hours on the first day. 1 running there, 2 waiting and fishing around, and 3 running back. So then I get to my spot, and there's a bunch of people, so I'm graphing around just trying to find, because everybody's on the good shell, so I find some shell, and I'm working back and forth. So I ended up only catching 1 fish on day 1. Totally sucked, man. Like, I was devastated. Like, it seemed like everywhere I turned there was somebody, and it was just like, I hate fishing around people, and it takes me, every tournament I've been on here, it's about fishing around people. And it takes me day 1, it seems like, to get over that. So then day 2, what I do is I'm sticking around Harris, because I was like, I'm just gonna do this. I run over to this other spot in Little Harris, and it's end up catching a limit fairly. Or no, I went to Big Harris, that spot with the shells bed, and I just started fishing around where other people weren't. End up catching, I think 3 or 4 right there. Run over to Little Harris, fill out my limit. Then I end up calling like 5 times, but guess what? It's like every one I called was like an ounce call. So, I caught a lot of fish. I just never got... Oh, I did have... So, just into Big Harris, I was flipping. I was like, man, I got to get 1 big bite. I've been with a limit. I've called 5 times. I probably got like 7, 8 pounds. I have got to get something big. So, I'm flipping. And finally, pulling up, this giant comes and rolls on it. And, my heart sinks. I'm like, this is just my tournament. Like, dang it, how the heck do I miss that fish? He comes up and tries to grab it as I'm pulling it out of the water. Probably a 5 or 6 pounder, maybe a little bit more. He just rolled like a whale. Anyway, so I go through there like 3 different times working to catch some little more little fish. I was like, oh, I'll just come back here. Day 3, I know that fish exists. He's here. I know there's other fish here. I can see him on the live scope. There's schools all around this Kissimmee grass, these little Kissimmee grass points and little stretch of the bank. So I end up day 2, it was a lot better day because, I obviously limited out. But, obviously called 5 times, 5 ounces. So it has me sitting, damn near at the bottom, which is the worst. This is like the worst finish I think I've ever had percentage-wise with the amount of people. I think I've never finished this bad. But anyway, so day 3 game plan. I'm gonna scrap doing that shell bed thing because there is a top, one of the West Coast dudes that's in the top. Well, it doesn't matter if he's West Coast or not, but I mean, there's some top guys that are over there, and they're relying on that in their morning because they're hitting a shad spawn. So I go to somewhere else where there's nobody. There's a shad spawn going on, and there's a couple big blow-ups. I can't get anything, just can't. So then I go over, and I go to my other spot, and magically, where there was nobody the last couple days, there's people all over. Well, it turns out I saw them over there. There's a high school tournament. There is a local tournament, and they're just all over the place, and they don't care if you're fishing. I mean, I don't, it's public water, I understand, but I'm just not that type of person. I just don't run up on people. So I'm on this one spot that I was like, I get a quick lemon here. This guy just rolls right up on me. I'm talking about, like, I could literally just, I could flick a paper football into his boat. And he sits there and just kind of watches me. Then he gets up, starts fishing. Then I go to another spot. Same thing. I was like, I don't know. Maybe they're just used to it. Maybe that's the etiquette. But where I'm from, you just don't do that kind of stuff. If anything, you see a guy, he's fishing that's kind of his little stretch. You can see his intention. You let him go, and then you come back. Or you talk to him a lot. These guys don't even talk to you. So then I run to another spot. And in fact, I did this. So I took a chance, and I just ran to a spot that I haven't never fished. And there's a high school, some high school anglers there. So I kind of like sit back, and I go back behind them, and I let them hit everything. And I come behind them, and finally I start catching them on docks. Flipping a little flick shake underneath there. And I mean, every dock I could call my shot. Bam, catch one, bam, catch one. Eventually I'm like, all right, this is it. So I go back down to that shell bed area. Everybody's done with the shad spawn. Everybody's out deep. So I run over there, and I start going onto this dock. And man, I start wailing on them. And I think I call a couple times. And finally I'm like, I need a big one. But I'm going to keep doing this because, my average fish now is like close to about 2 pounds. So I'm like, let's see if we can get like a 4 or 5 pounder. I'm way out of it, but we're gonna have fun. This is fun going down and having a good pattern like this. And Doc's flipping a NACO rig, and I'm watching other guys go through these docks because they're just getting pounded. And I'm doing something a little different, and I'm getting bit. I'm going behind these people and catching them. But so I go over to this one that I've been I went on one side. It's super deep. I caught a couple off there, and I lost one. And I don't think he was that big. So I go around the other side. Bam, I make this sweet little skip cast, and next thing you know, my line's just going. And I mean, I got him, and it's a giant, right? And I'm with a spinning rod, so I know how to deal with them underneath there. But I didn't anticipate this, so I had him. He shoots off. He kind of porpoises a little bit, and my line goes up, and it ticks this right where the braid goes to the fluoro leader. It ticks a bolt. And it snaps like that. So I mean, I just like almost cry because that thing was probably a 6-7. It was big. It was a giant fish. I go around and I catch like a 3 pounder the rest of the day. So I weigh in. I had like 10 something. I mean, I progressively got better throughout the day, but it's still the worst tournament finish. I had fun that last day, but there's just so many people and so many tournaments. But I just never got that big bite when I actually got on the fish. Besides that one, I lost. I say I had 2 opportunities for big fish. I still wouldn't have been in the money because my day 1 really screwed me. I will be prepared better for next time I have to go to Florida. I'll tell you that. I know, I learned a lot about Florida, and I've always heard Florida is like this, this thing that can really slap you around if you've never been there as a tournament angler. But I learned a lot. Worst finish of the year, and it will be the worst finish of my year because I'm not going to let that stuff happen to me again. Next stop is Pickwick. I think it's going to be a little more conducive to what I'm used to. It's a multi-stage fishery. You have smallmouth, largemouth, and spots, but there's areas that are indicative of smallmouth. There's areas that are indicative of largemouth, giant smallies, and I think I'll be okay, going to that fishery, and then of course Wisconsin, and then Grand, which I have some experience on. So that should be the worst finish of my life. Then of course you got the U.S. Open, which I'm pretty solid there. I know Lake Mead, and it's just a matter of, being efficient enough and not having equipment issues, and doing what we got to do there. Landing the fish that we do have the opportunity to. Because every time I'm in the mix when it comes to these Lake Mead and Lake Havasu, it's just there's always some extraneous factor that gets me. But anyway, so look for me at Pickwick. The X factor there is that they're doing it in Counts, which is on the other side of the lake, I guess. Which I've never been to Pickwick. I'm just saying. I'm assuming it's going to be more conducive to me, just because the way that fishery seems to be like a multi. I don't say multi. I call it multi-stage because there's a deep water. It's 2-stage, bluffy, rocky. There's shallow grass, wood, docks. There's multiple things that can hold different styles of fish. If it holds smallmouth to me, to me that's almost like a multi-stage fishery and largemouth, because smallmouth, they kind of need a little more, dissolved oxygen. Their habitat requirements are a little more extensive than a largemouth, it seems like. But anyway, like and subscribe, and I will talk to you later. We're gonna have some more stuff coming out. I'm gonna go over this NACO rig by the way that I was flipping underneath there. Not that it was anything special, but I was able to go behind guys and do that and catch fish that they couldn't get, and I was able to. There's some tricks that I was doing in order to save weights, in order to save to get baits to do certain things, and it's pretty interesting. I love that rig. They call it the Dick rig in the West Coast, but the NACO rig for everybody else. Anyway, talk to you later. Peace.